Smiley loved to ride. Way younger than the rest, and in home life at the best, you can find 15 alive. Lord, give him one more chance to let him ride.
Hi, I'm Mitch from Hard Intentions YouTube channel. It's been a while since I've done an interview, and what better way to kick it back off than with my friend Big John. John, how you doing? Want to introduce yourself?
I'm good, man. It is anyway. We don't care. Yeah, I'm John Webb. I'm from Carmichael, California. Currently, I used to live in the Sacramento area, which Carmichael's about 20 miles east of Sacramento.
Right.
I'm married again. Have 3 kids. I have a 5-year-old, 15-year-old boy, a 5-year-old boy, and a 31-year-old girl. And currently married to the woman of my dreams. I'm surprised that that happened. That I could actually find a woman that could put up with my shit, with my background and everything. Let's see. I'm a streamer. I have a podcast,
Right.
Inspector Web Podcast on Rumble. We'll probably talk about that later.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that my everything's working over here on my side.
You're originally from Sacramento.
Originally from Sacramento. I see what's going on. Yeah, I'm originally from the Sacramento area. That's much better.
Right.
And I come from a really, like there's Oak Park, and then right next to Oak Park is Rainbow Park. I'm from the Rainbow Park area.
All right.
And it's a rough area. Drugs, gangs, and all that stuff. I grew up around all that kind of an atmosphere. Looking back,
when I worked for Forensic Clean, I used to work over there in South Sacramento.
Oh, is that right? Oh, I remember when you was working doing cleanup, right?
Right.
Yeah. One of the things that I look back on is I can't believe that I was literally in that situation for so long. I mean, my mom was a single mom taking care of 2 boys, and I really never grew up. I just stayed there, and I continued to do the stupid stuff that I did, and everybody else in the family moved on and went away, and I stayed there in my brain thinking is I'm taking care of my mom, but we know in all actuality I was just a mama's boy being taken care of by mom, right?
So you were raised by a single mom, dad split, or what happened to dad?
Dad split when I was 7. Yeah, so I'm a product of that environment, right? And
All right.
so I guess at some point I learned something different, but to get there was not easy.
Yeah. So,
Drugs. Go ahead.
Did you go to school?
Yeah, I did to the 10th grade. We moved around a little bit when I was younger.
Right.
I did till 10th grade, and then it was more fun to do other stuff instead of that. My mom was like, "Hey, if you can't keep it together, you got to go." So I was out by I was 16, and I already had my own place, doing my own thing with everybody that I was around were, when I was 16 years old, were 25, 30 years old. They were all grown-ups, and I was still a
All
little
right.
kid, wet behind the ears.
All right.
And they were all,
So you had your own spot when you were 16?
yeah, it's funny because my mom was like, "You can't be here because basically I was just an idiot. I just couldn't control myself,
Yeah.
and drugs and stuff was way more important than having a job or whatever. If I did get a job, I would work for a week, get a paycheck, and then I'd quit the job so I had some money so I can go get some more dope and do that. I was that product. I was product of
So
of
were
the
you like selling dope and using dope, or just using
yeah,
it? What
yeah. later on, it started off with me just being a user, and then I realized that if I knew the right people and did the right things, I could actually supply my habit by selling to other people, and then that's what I
Right.
did. And once I realized that, then the money became more of the addiction than the actual.
And that would have been like in the 80s.
Yeah, that would be the 80s, late early 80s, 80, yeah, early 80s from about
Yeah.
16 until when I got clean. I got clean in 2002.
Yeah. So
So
that was when crank was real big in California, especially Sacramento,
which
San
one, the
Diego.
crank or the crack?
The
Crank,
crank.
yeah,
I don't know what kind of dope you were using, but
crank, yeah, speed. Where's
yeah,
all speed?
speed. Yeah.
Running amok. I was never into stealing because
Yeah.
I just wasn't that guy, but um I used to buy everybody's stuff. I used to buy all the stolen stuff, right? Because I had dope, you know,
What
that's kind of
influenced you to go from going to school and then and then getting into the dope game, dope using
well,
and all?
so when I look back, my sister, I have a sister that's about 8 years older, 7 years older than me,
Yeah.
and all her all her people were bikers, scooter trash,
Yeah.
belonged to different patch clubs and all that kind of stuff. And
Right.
and that was my idol when I was 16. I really thought that the dude with the tattoos up to his earlobes was the thing. I thought that was so cool. And
Yeah.
that led me down that path, really. I mean, that was the thing. It was like, hey, you know,
Yeah.
that is so cool. I remember,
I
and
can relate.
I'll leave the names out of it, but at one point it was about 1989 or 9 or something.
Mhm.
A club member, he was like, we were doing some dealings and stuff like that, and he's like, "Well, what do you really want to do here?" And I'm like, "I just want my own motorcycle. I'll do whatever. I just want my own motorcycle."
Yeah.
And that was my mentality. It wasn't like I want a house with some kids and a white picket fence. It was like
Right.
I want a motorcycle. I want to be like you guys. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
know. And yeah, that was a very long time ago. That
Yeah,
was 30.
because when you're young and you're a teenager and you got a motorcycle, you got everything.
Oh yeah. Well,
You got it
yeah,
all. I can relate because that's where I was at when I got busted. And I was 17 when I got busted. So
yeah. So I remember being a habitual traffic offender when I was 16. I hadn't even had a driver's license yet, and my mom's taking me to court to for these traffic tickets, because I kept getting traffic. I mean, I had tons of them, and
yeah,
the judge was like, "Hey, you're a habitual traffic offender," and I wore that like as a badge of honor back there. That was so cool that I
yeah,
was like wore to the court. You know what I mean? Now I look back on it like, what kind of idiot I was. But listen, I didn't have any of those. I didn't have like really good mentors when I was growing up. There were people that were, you know, doing bad stuff. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And it really wasn't until I got clean and started like working a program, because I went through Narcotics Anonymous for
yeah.
about the first 10 or 15 years of my clean of being clean.
Yeah, but
But
the guys that were your mentors coming up, like for me, my mentors as a kid were better than my home life. My home life was, I had a stepdad who used to beat the shit out of me. He had no respect for me or my mom probably either. And so I was like, hey, fuck you. And I would run around the neighborhood. Me and my other partners, they're probably in the same living situation as I was.
yeah,
And
yeah,
we ran across, guys in bike clubs and guys that are bikers that weren't in clubs and, they do drugs and dealing and up, but they had some positive stuff too. Like,
hon-
I,
honor,
I
honor,
never, I never
yeah,
shot dope. I was into dope shit for years and years and years. I never shot dope because that was against the rules. And, you
right,
know, and there's a
absolutely,
bunch of other stuff that they would tell you, hey, like, don't do this, don't do that. And it helped me out later on in life. And even now I still live by a lot of the same rules and
yeah, yeah,
so
like,
guys, even though they're doing bad shit, they still had some positive to it.
right, exactly. They, it seemed like, and at that young age. Also, you think about um, the even though they were, they might have been a dope cook or whatever. I mean, I was around all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
um, they had some, and the morals and values might have been skewed a little bit. They might not have been what I would consider good morals and values today, but back then, at my young age, when I had been through all that stuff growing up with no dad, and boyfriend after boyfriend with my mom and all that stuff, and my sister always getting beat up by her boyfriend, just all that stuff. When there was somebody that showed me respect, whether didn't matter what kind of respect it was, just some respect, and I gravitated towards that.
Yeah.
And it was unfortunate that I went and I just kept going. I mean, some of those kids from my neighborhood that were doing the same thing as me, they got out and they ended up being, um, you know, whatever productive members of society. I didn't find that until way later.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't until, I don't even know how many prison sentences it was, a lot of them, before I actually was like, "What are you doing?" And I
Yeah.
don't even think it was me. I think it was my daughter when I think I think I was in Folsom, and I went out to court on a case that was pending, and I went out, and she came down to the county jail. The only time she ever visited me, I don't know, she must have been 5 or 6, and she sat across the window from me, in the county jail, and she said something like, when are you gonna stop doing this, and when are you gonna be my dad?" And that's when it kind of started to turn for me because, you know, I mean, she's my what's up, buddy? Yeah, and I think that is really, and it was 5 years later that I actually, but the homeboy stories and all that stuff, the yard talk and
Yeah.
it's the
So,
same story with a different face, right?
so
For
you were
you.
involved with the dope when you're 16, went on, for however many years. But so how long did you go before you because you can only go so long and then you're on the radar of the law enforcement.
Yeah, so by the time I turned 18, I was already doing my first little bit, maybe it was 6 months in county or whatever, and then
Yeah.
I went from that straight to the big house, and then it was that revolving door,
So what were your charges? Always drug charges or what?
drug charges, possession, a lot of possessions. I had maybe 1 or 2 possession for sales, all the it's funny because you look at the laws today, and
Yeah.
everything that I went to prison for today,
Yeah.
they don't even arrest people for anymore.
No,
You
they
know?
just sent them on
Yeah.
their way.
I
Probably
got
don't
most of that stuff reversed during that I think it was Prop 42 or whatever it was.
they
But
probably
yeah,
don't take their dope anymore. They just let them go.
yeah, I mean, look, y'all, and if you watch the news or not, that's my one of my things is pay really close attention to the political media, and not the mainstream media, but the media.
Yeah.
And there's cops getting beat down on the street by 5 immigrants, and then they just let them out the same day with no bail. I mean, it's like we're in a
So
weird predicament right now.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
so you got busted.
Yep.
What you ever go to youth authority or just go to county jail and then
No, I skipped that because what happened was when I was about 14, I was with the guy that was about 30-ish, five, maybe 30, 35, whatever, and we're doing these we're doing like heists. We'll call it a heist.
yeah.
And I was like, listen, dude, telling myself, if you do that, you're gonna end up in like YA or whatever. So I kind of my mom was like they my when they came and got me from juvenile hall in, I think it was San Jose or something, because we're smart robbers, by the way. We would go to like the airport where they have the most cameras in the whole place, and we go try and do something there. And so, I mean, it's so asinine now, but back then, spun out on crystal meth. You know what I mean? I mean, you don't think so clearly, right?
Yeah.
And so my mom would put me on a bus or a plane or something and ship me to one of my brothers in Washington. Or
Yeah.
one time I went to Washington State. One time I went to 2 times I went to Tennessee. I mean, she just get me out of there because so from about 15 was the first trip, and then I'd spend the summer, and then I'd come back, and I'd get in trouble because if you go back to the neighborhood, you're going to continue to do the same thing that you always did. And
Yeah.
then I guess when I turned 18, she couldn't save me no more. And then I ended up going to jail. And then by 19, I think I was on my way to I think I went to CRC the first place I went.
Yeah.
Uh,
So be a level 2.
yeah, well, CRC's
CRT was a drug. Was it a drug
yeah.
program at the time?
Yeah, the drug program that I drug out and turned it into a felony commitment. Yeah, that one.
Okay,
So I
so
did
just so people can understand, CRC is California Rehabilitation Center, and
Corona.
if you get committed there, it's a civil commitment as a drug addict,
Right.
right? Basically,
If you can do it, if you can go there and not get in trouble and you could do everything the way you're supposed to do,
yeah,
it's like a temp back then. I mean, we're talking about uh 90s. If you go there, you do the program and it's like a 10-month program. It's like a life term kind of thing, where you go in front of the board. You're familiar with that. You go in front of the board. They look at all the stuff that you've done while you're there. If you've been good, then they let you out. And then you
but the
go and then you
problem
got
was they have like a 10-year parole.
it was a standard 4, 3, and 1,
Okay,
but
because when
this
I was in the county jail, guys were saying, yeah, it's CRC, but it had like a 10-year parole, but you
yeah.
could get off if you're good, or but nobody ever got off.
Well, so and that's the point is like I had I don't know, I think I had 2.8. I'd have been better off just going to state prison and doing halftime on 2 years, 8 months because I did all of that and then plus violations. And one time, so what happened was Um, I did a couple what they call limited placements where you go turn yourself in or whatever. I think I did one of those, and I went to the parole office to turn myself one time. And then after that, that commitment was, and that was the one that I went back to court for because that one was on the bench, and then I was catching more cases for drugs and going to state prison. So
Yeah,
while that's pending, right? Because I haven't finished that civil commitment, so it's still pending. And then I got these other cases that I'm building up,
yeah,
possessions and all that stuff and going to Folsom and all these different places, Calipatria. I mean, just, all over. I mean, I'm like on the tour bus and I was at Pleasant Valley or no, actually I was in San Quentin and I went out to court for that when my daughter came to the county jail.
yeah.
And then when they reconverted that, I ended up spending a couple months in appeal, and then I got out. And that was the time before the last time that I literally was like, "This shit ain't working." You know what I mean?
So
Me,
your
me
first
doing this,
prison
huh?
stop, right? Where you went to see after CRC? Where'd you go after that? When you started going to prison, what was your first prison shot?
Folsom. I went to level 2, and then of course level 2 turned into level 3. And I
Yeah,
ended up at Mule Creek on the good yard. I think they had 1 good yard and 2 really, really not so good yards. And then I ended up at Susanville. My points went down. Instead of them sending me back to Folsom, they shot me to Susanville, and I spent a bunch of time up there in Lassen Yard and then Sierra
yeah,
Yard or whatever. And then I would really want to go to camp, right? But they weren't going for that, right?
yeah,
And so, because that would have been great. I mean, do the last year and a half or 2 years of your sentence just, at fire
yeah,
camp, that'd be cool. But yeah, they're not doing that with me, especially with my background, right? Because I have background. You know what I mean
And
uh
so when you got out, how many times did you go in and out?
uh I couldn't tell you how many times, but about 15 years in and
Yeah.
out over a period of
Did you
time.
ever hit like level 3, level 4 type prisons?
Yeah, I was level 3 Lassen Yard in Susanville and New Folsom was the other one. Uh, I ended
Level
up I ended up in Lassen, and then I was able to get a hardship because my mom was sick, so they shot me back down to Folsom,
You're
and
in
so that was
Norfolk.
cool. But I also went to Pleasant Valley. I opened that prison. I was the 6th bus into Pleasant Valley State Prison.
Well, I heard
Uh,
Pleasant Valley was kind of nice when it first opened.
when it first opened, but
Yeah,
shortly after they doubled those bunks, I went off, and it was pretty bad from what,
yeah, yeah.
people
It's
were
still bad.
saying.
I mean, it's just nightmare. Yeah.
Nightmare. Aren't you glad you're
Bulldog
out?
and everything, just bad,
Horrible.
violent, violent, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
all the
so
time.
that's what they do after about 3 or 4 years of those prisons getting activated, then they really get activated because everybody's trying all the different cars are trying to get their position, and they're gonna see who's gonna run who's gonna run the yard, you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
that's kinda how that goes, you know?
yeah, yeah.
So I think, the last one was Folsom Prison, level 2, and then, I got out. I was out 2 weeks, and, I got arrested,
Oh
and I
wow.
was like 2 weeks, and I'm
Yeah.
like, "What the hell?" And
Were you using?
it was a sting operation,
Were
and,
you using?
I wasn't loaded. I was
No.
clean. I
Yeah.
was clean because I was with these girls, and they were doing some funky shit, whatever they were doing, and the task force got involved and all that stuff, and so I ended up going to county jail, and I fought it for 9 months in the hole because they wouldn't even let me on a floor, and, and they, and I ended up getting Prop 36, so I was on parole with Prop 36. I was the first state probationer to, complete Proposition 36. I've been clean ever since.
And
That
so
was
what Prop
2.
36? So just so because people don't know.
The outpatient drug treatment program.
So
And
I was in prison when that happened.
uh-huh. Was you
And
still
so
there?
yeah, I was in Soledad or somewhere. But so my understanding of Prop 36 and Brian, I think our friend Brian was a Prop 36 guy too,
Yeah,
which
outpatient.
that changed his
Yeah,
life too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Get a
so
cage instead of going to prison, you could go through drug treatment. Is
right.
that what
Well,
it was?
they have different levels. They have an outpatient. So the judge gives you, I could have done an outpatient. Judge gives me, time to complete a program year, 18 months, whatever. But I
Mhm.
couldn't do that because I was still trying to get loaded. So
Yeah,
then I ended up in a program
yeah.
and for in-house program for a couple months. I actually had a 90-day program, and remember in the back of my mind, I'm like talking myself out of doing these drugs and running the streets, and I want to be more part of my family's life and all that stuff. And so when I went to that treatment center I went there for 2 months on a 3-month commitment. They let me out early because I was like, once I changed my thinking, I didn't need to be there anymore.
So let
You
me
know,
ask you, right there, you say you change your thinking, your cognitive behavior starts to change, right? So throughout your 15 years in and out of prison, you go in thinking, yeah, all these motherfuckers are down, white guys are woo 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 and homeboys and whatever. For me, it was, biker shit and white. I went through youth authority, so very racist mentality kind of takes hold because that's the way it is in California.
yeah, politics,
Just
prison
like
politics.
down for the white cause and whatever
Yeah.
and biker shit.
Yeah.
And the biker shit's real. I mean, I still have friends that are in clubs and all that shit. But all that other shit it's kind of like. Did you start to see like basically it's a bunch of bullshit?
Yep,
I
programming.
mean, putting it, pretty
Yeah.
simplistic. I mean, what was your take on all the things that you thought were cool when you were a kid and young and coming up, and all the program mentality they try to, this is the way it is, Holmes, and then where
That's
did
why I said
where did
that piece, Smiley. That's why I said that piece where I about 5 years before I stopped going in and out of prison, where I was like, it's the same story, with a different person telling the story. It's just like
Yeah.
recycled stories at some point because it's all bullshit. Not
Yeah.
to say that like what people are down for when they're there is legit because let's face it, like there's situations that are, whether it's black and white, whatever the racist
Right.
racial thing is, whatever the tension is, that's prison politics. That's what that is. And which is different in my belief than like a biker clique, you know. I mean,
Right.
because you don't really see bikers like fighting each other in prison. At least
No.
I never did. They
Now,
kind of
the
live
bike
together.
clubs go to prison, they get along with each other,
Right. Well, yeah, it's the only smart thing to do.
Yeah.
But what I think the biggest thing is all that politics that happened for all those years um, really taught me that that's some kind of a stigma because like no, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't hang out with this guy, you can't hang out with that guy, whether it was for your own good or not. I don't want to debate that, but what I found, some of my best friends now are not white people, right? And
Yeah.
so but in that situation you kind of especially if you're a kid and you go in there, if you don't follow the rule, then you might not make it out of prison. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but here's my thing. I've been in prison a long time. I'm in San Quentin level 2. I got in
Yeah,
trouble. I went to the hole. And I
yeah,
was neighbors with this kid from Humboldt County, big kid.
yeah.
And Tyler, what's up? If you're watching. And so we're from the main line. Then you got these guys that are always in the hole. They come back in and out of prison and they go to the hole and one of them's like one of the newer prison gangs. And in San Quentin in the hole, they got PCs on the first tier and they're intermixed all throughout the tiers. And you're not supposed to talk to them, right? And so every now, but what they do is they'll get your name and then it'd be like, hey John, you're a fucking rat, motherfucker, because they ear hustle your name, and then they'll start talking shit. So every once in a while, me and this youngster Tyler be like, hey, fuck you, you rat motherfucker. If I get my hands on you, I'm gonna fucking snap your neck. Because
Talk about
every
the
now and then you're in a hole for months and shit, and it's like, and so we get a kite, like, but in the meantime, these dudes are fishing with these dudes with a fish line down the first tier, buying morphine pills from them. You know what I'm saying? So they send us a kite, and they tell Tyler, hey man, you guys aren't supposed to be talking to PCs. Do that again. Blah blah blah. We'll take you off roll call.
While they're buying dope
So
off.
he wrote on the kite, hey, fuck you, take me off roll call, and I'll see you on the fucking main line, punk. And he sent me
Right.
the kite, and he goes, is that all right with you? And I go, that's fine with me. And then they send the kite back. It's not like that, bro. We just meet, fuck. That's what I'm talking about, bro. It's phony fucking bullshit.
Well, so
And
yeah, so without getting into the names and numbers,
yeah,
but so I'm from Sacramento. Okay,
yeah,
that tells you a
oh,
lot.
yeah,
And I've seen some of the homeboys that are supposed to be homeboys down homeboys
yeah.
that will kick off a race riot instead of paying their debt for their heroin.